Hello and welcome to the Inside Stylist podcast. I'm Emma Morton-Turner and you're listening to episode 27, Talking Art with Rory Dobner, the most imaginative creative I've ever met. So if you follow my Instagram stories, you will have seen yesterday that I went to Rory Dobner's house for a press breakfast to see his new collection. And I got there very early and we were chatting for quite a while before other people arrived. And I was just blown away by the way his mind works. He's absolutely fascinating. I kind of went expecting him to be an artist and to be creative. I've seen the cats, the monocles and the bowler hats and the tiles and the pictures, but actually there's a whole deeper level. Also, I've seen his house in places before, but it's absolutely stunning. And he was very warm and welcoming, and it was a really lovely morning. And to get to talk to him was really inspirational. So I really hope you get a hint of that. There were so many stories that he was telling throughout the morning that I didn't feel I could ask him to repeat them all. I've asked him to repeat some of them, but it was just really fascinating. I love going behind the scenes and speaking to people about their collections for interiors. So I'm hoping that you get that vibe and that you enjoy it as much as I did. Enjoy the episode. So today's guest is an incredibly creative artist. I'm very excited to be sitting in Rory Dobner's studio, having just been at a press breakfast. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me for the podcast.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for coming.
I've got a load of questions that I've sent to Rory in advance, but actually I'm so inspired because you were just a whirl of inspiration, and the creativity that you've been talking about from your childhood, it's been amazing. I've had a really good morning.
Okay.
But so we're here today because you're launching a new collection. So you're predominantly known for, I think maybe the cat is probably where most people will think of you from beginning. I know you've told me already, but do you want to talk about how that kind of came to be?
It was probably from a few years ago, trying to think of always getting inspiration from different characters and sort of pondering where those characters could come from. And it was I was watching James Bond. And I watched a lot of James Bond movies, and one of them had the white cat in it. I think it was Dr. No, and it was a bit like wondering what that cat does in the day and what does it hear. And I was thinking, it must listen on all these evil plans about taking over the world. And it's not necessarily an evil cat; it's just that he hears all these plans from his evil owner. And so a friend of mine, equally at the same time, said his cat always listens to what he's saying in the kitchen. And so I was a bit like it's a mixture of those two things. So I ended up drawing this white cat with the monocle that the baddie wears, and then over time he's progressed to have like a bowler hat and things in his life, and but what's important is when I draw the expression of the animals, and so his expression was a bit like he's just heard like a really good evil plan, so he's kind of gone, oh, that's a bad one, and so it's capturing that moment and that kind of intelligence as well that the cats quite often can display as well. It's that thoughtfulness in their eyes, and you're curious to what they're thinking about. Hopefully I've captured that in there. And there's also something about the shape of him as well. He's very engaging because he's a white cat. Almost the lines are pointing, all directing towards his eyes and his face as well. So there's something in that creates the overall design is engaging because of the way it's laid out. And it's gone on to be in so many different countries that people have really enjoyed it, and it's even people will hold their fingers to make a ring at their eye as well, and like, you're the cat guy, like that, and so it's been something that you get quite known for. It's like having your hit song.
But so they're done with ink. I was just watching you doing your drawings with the fountain pen. But you trained at Central St Martin's, didn't you?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So I did. It was my dream always to study art in London, and I wanted to be with all these people from probably like different countries and seeing what their styles were, and it was very much like that. It was a very exciting place. We were all taught to be almost like show our character as much as possible and not really do things that are, you think the world need, or what the style is at the moment.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and, be as crazy as you like, or experiment, as much as you can. And so it was a very free melting pot of creativity like that. And it was all the people that I was with are doing vastly different things. And I suppose stories kind of always have a relevance to what I was doing, even though I was building big kind of sculptural things. I built like a one called a Xylophone Man, and the story was that there's the ballerina on a musical box, but no one knows there's her like husband is in the mechanical workings inside the box, and he's making the music. And so it was like making it like she's all pristine and beautiful and clean, sparkling on top of the box. But he's in like he's like this guy who I did the performance as him. So I was kind of like bandaged up with like black fabric, and I had this cage around me with metal arms, and I built a circular xylophone keyboard that went around me. So you press a button, and then I start spinning around, and then as my hands come down, it's like a record, and it will play like the sound of the for the ballerina. So it's kind of making like a dark, mystical side to it that no one's really noticed. But it's so it was things that were a bit like that, or Houdini type things. I would do performances where I'd be locked upside down in water and things like that. Again, it was animals related as well. There was like a duck, and I was thinking, how could a duck swim around so effortlessly? So I got inside a giant duck, and then I was hanging out the bottom of the duck. But then I was locked in a bowl of water upside down. And then but it's like that drama of like making it look like it's gone really wrong. So I simulated like I was drowning, it's going wrong, we had to close the curtains. And then at the end I emerged like, I survived. And so it was like, I did random things like that, but then it would be like I'd make a poster for it, for the one time I did it. But it became like a thing. I did it on MTV. I was like packing it in a van. I was doing it at different events and things. It was like it just suddenly started off this style of doing these performances. But then I was a bit like, I'm not doing this anymore. But it's too dangerous.
It does sound a little bit.
And then my career's very much like that. It's very much like I feel like I want to do that, and I do that. And then the drawings is something that I've always done, and that's always had like something that I've never really shown anyone. Really, I've always shown people other things that I do. My drawing's always been a bit secret to me, really. And so when I started showing to it was really showing people them in exhibition. It was really interesting to see the reaction.
You've told some stories from this morning about how it's like you have the drawings of the creations, the characters are inside of you. So where does that inspiration come from?
It's like daydreaming too much, probably. It's a bit like I genuinely believe like that the idea that they have their own kind of society and their own things that they get up to. Obviously they don't get up to all the things that I do in my drawings, but it's like they do have their own world and their own lives, like separate from us. But then it's that magic that maybe they're capable of so much more. And so I think it's a bit like wanting to I suppose my drive is that I want that to be real, really. I want them to be dressing up and getting up to mischief, and it's almost like that society thing versus the freedom. It's like the animals are so free, and it's probably something that I think it's probably the best thing to be, And so I think living through them, they can like mice can explore all the underground, under London, and see things that we can't do, and the pigeons sit on St Paul's Cathedral and look down on us all, and look at the clouds going past and thinking it's a lovely day, isn't it? And I don't know, it's just that kind of idea, and it's
You have a phenomenal imagination. Did you get in trouble at school for you doodling all the time and doing drawings?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I was genuinely interested and enthusiastic about, at school as well. I mean, I was really very curious about everything and how things worked, and why things happened. Obviously, like English, I loved, and writing and poetry, and I just couldn't stop myself making things and doing things. So I've probably drawn on most things that I'd owned, like kids do on their journals and things. But I'd probably like write an essay, then I would draw like 5 drawings to go with the essay that were all stuffed on bits of paper in my books, and but I'd probably just draw all over my rucksack. And it was always like thinking, oh, how could I design it to make it like more fun? Or I drew in I had a cap that I'd have to say good morning mum every morning I'd come into school, so I cut a little door into the peak of my hat and drew a picture of me with a speech bubble saying good morning mum, thinking this would make the teacher's day a bit different, and like it would be make her laugh, but obviously got in trouble for it.
It's quite interesting. I kind of think of creative people quite often get told that they should be working harder and they shouldn't be daydreaming, but actually I think your daydreaming and your kind of imagination and the stories that play out in your head have come out in your work, and it's turned into your whole career. And that's really cool. It's really cool to live in. I'd love to live in your head.
I think it's fine being imaginative and daydream, but then it's the output that you put as well into it. Sometimes you don't really know how to what to use it for, and it's something that maybe later on in life it suddenly comes together. And
because you were talking about the drawings. You've always done drawings, and you've done drawings for people as gifts, and these are kind of things that you had when you were putting them on. Not so much, I think it was the plates, wasn't it? So you were explaining about your wife and the lobster. Was it lobster?
Lobster.
Lobster.
Because I call her Claw as her nickname, so I always draw her things with claws. So like a lobster eating sushi, or the claw talons of an eagle with a rose. Things like that, because it's like her birthday or it's Valentine's Day. Or for years I've done letters and things. I've drawn little ants, flying kites, or ballerina ants, or because someone's a dancer, or so it's been something that I think I used to do envelopes. That was it. So when you have a closed eye, like you seal an envelope. So I used to put a closed eye over the seal, and when you open it, there's an open eye inside. Brilliant. Things like that. But it's probably my eye maybe, or something. I don't know. But there's things like that which I've probably forgotten half the things. But it's very much a way of communicating and making. I kind of want to surprise people a little bit as well. Like when you turn the letter over, you're like, whoa, what's this? It's something a bit curious, a bit mystical. It's really lovely, and also it's very personal that if you give something to someone and you've made that extra effort, it's like if you want to give someone, like I do a lot of baking, if I want to give someone a gift, but it's a bit extra, I'll bake them biscuits or something, and then it's the thought of it, and something's very special like that. I think.
I hope everyone's kept their
exactly. I think my mum described it once, saying, when I described like I first fancied a girl in my class, she was like, oh, you have to go and tell her that you like, and I was like, no, I've given her a drawing of a tree, and like that was my. She's like, really? I don't know if she'll like that, I was like, yeah, she will. It's a really good drawing,
It's original. It's like a
it's some old tree that's probably in the playground. I've gone, here's a drawing of a tree. It's like she's going, okay, that guy's weird. I'm not sure what it is.
Make that flowers.
Yeah. It's probably just the thing that was precious to me. I thought, I'll give her that.
But and the drawing isn't the only thing. The artist side of things. You do interiors as well. I didn't know that.
That's something. Again, it's like being a very visual person. When I sit in a room, I like looking at objects and things that inspire me really. And but quite often I'll look at like the sofa we're sitting on. It's a bit like I wanted to say, but I couldn't find anything I want. So I'm like, what would it, if I could invent one, what would it be like? So then I started drawing this drawing that was like a sofa that had just like, because it's in my studio, I thought, well, I'll probably have to cover it with some canvases to stop getting paint all over and ink on. But then I was like, what if the canvas was upholstered slightly, and the studs were put in, but not all over it. So it's kind of like half hanging off and half upholstered. And it was a bit like, they could do that. That's possible. And then I go and get it made, or I make it myself. So it goes on like that really. And then we've it's been from objects that we found, but then it's created a certain style accidentally, I suppose, that we've related to. We've designed interiors for like agent provocateur shops in America, and they've been like panelled walls, and we've done sort of like Degornay like wallpapers that have got jungles with monkeys with whips and like beautiful ladies laid on like banana leaves, lounging in the forest floor in their underwear, and things like that. So it's like a bit like taking the things that we can create an atmosphere in, but then injecting it with like really original details, that are unique to that company as well. And so, but it is definitely about creating an atmosphere, I think,
Your studio here, it's if I just describe it to everyone listening, it's a very white space with a lot of, it's very monochrome, but there's so much to look at. Like you've got the wall, I've taken a few snaps, I'll post them on the show notes, but you've got a wall with all your plates, and you've got really interesting frames. You showed me your frames above your desk. And there's just all the taxidermy with your hairs, with all the necklaces, the scarves and ribbons and things. There's so much to look at. You've kind of created like a white blank canvas, as it were, and then put your style on it.
That is kind of, it's definitely the white walls are important, because it's like my drawings, they're white objects, and they have the objects in the middle. So essentially that is a bit like they're capsules of things. So even though there's quite a lot in the room, there is a gap of white in between everything, and it's that's quite, I find that as an important rule that I have. Once it starts to become too overlaid, it's like those objects that aren't strong again, they're not standing out enough. And but the marriage of the objects together is like, can be very immediate, or it can be over time. Like the clock behind us, there's like an old clock face, and then there's like a beetle, big black beetle with like a diamond brooch on it, and that's been like lying around in my studio. Then one day I drew it, and that's become like the beetle clock design. So lots of the things are the things I'm playing with in my house that I end up drawing.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like your studio is your inspiration.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So today, actually, I was going to talk about the new collection, but I think we have to talk about the book first. You've got a new book coming out.
Yes.
It's very exciting. It's called The Ink House.
Yes.
It's out early October. I think October the 8th, I think.
Yes.
So you've illustrated this book, and I think, did it take 2 years to complete?
Yeah, 2 years.
How did you kind of write it first and then slot it in
oil.
with? Oh, I'm sure.
It was. I suppose I started it thinking it would take a certain amount of time and it would be fine. Got massively carried away with it, and because I suppose I have to kind of keep my imagination a bit like on a tap. It's a bit like I can let it flow for a certain amount of time, and then I do it, I finish the drawing, but then I try not let it completely flow, because it's almost too much, there's too many ideas. So then when I did the book, it was a bit like I sort of turned the tap a bit more on, and so it's like it was the interiors, it was the story, it was like the house, everything was like I could use all the things that I often think about, all contained in one space. So it was a bit like the simple idea of like getting my characters, or new characters that I was thinking in my head, that how could they all live together or somehow all interact together. So that's when the house idea kind of came around. And then there's a favourite spot that I have on Hampstead Heath that's got a lovely pond and a bridge, an old bridge going across the pond, and I love sitting there, and that was where I kind of first imagined this could be the place where the house used to exist, and where all the animals end up meeting, and so it went from that, and again finding all the rooms and the inspiration behind places that I've travelled or like stately homes, or favourite hallways, or the tiles on the floor. There's all those things that I've sketched in different books that I've had to rifle through my library of random books and find them. So it's pulling on lots of inspiration over years, really.
Yeah.
And then making them all string together into one story.
So did you have the story written and planned out before you started doing the drawing? Or did it flow?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think, because it was I think it just grew. It started growing very organic, really, and it was probably a bigger, more complicated story, and then I've just refined it down really to be more visually led, I suppose, and to be one section of their time in the house, rather than I've written it originally as the sole beginning before the house existed, you know, and why the house was built on this magical pool of ink, and all the way through the history of it. So it was a lot of writing, but it was really one middle section. Like if you were writing a film and you wanted to just do a short film, it's like that's the moment when the house is at its happiest and it's most alive, essentially. And so that was the bit I sort of concentrated on, mainly having a big party in the house, which is kind of, I think, which is what everyone has memories of, like having parties when their parents have left the house, or having your own house and you can have a big party. And it's a bit like that little window, again, is the window of magic in your world that everyone knows and remembers, even being a child and having a party, you know, it's the thing you look forward to all year. So I was like, well, that is the best bit of anyone's year. So that was we kind of built it around that.
The book's beautiful, and there's a few elements in it that you showed me. You've got little bugs running through, so people have to kind of kids have to find the bugs, reading newspapers and books and things.
That's it, and they're all hidden all the way through the book. I can't even find some of them, actually. I can't remember where I put them. So if people can let me know where they are, that would be really helpful. And tick them off. They're even the detail of like which books they're reading is pretty much relevant to the room.
Fabulous.
So if there's a room that's got, you know, plants in it, maybe the bugs could be reading a botany book, or you know, it's that kind of thing as well.
Attention to detail.
Which is what I really is like. I really try to promote that. You know, don't look at the world too quickly. You know, take in it. You know, in the full view. You know, your immediate view, but then focus in on the details, the tiny little bits and, you know, pieces, because the details can be as beautiful as the big picture. And I think not enough people pay enough attention to the tiny details.
Very right. And then one of the pages has shelves of teapots, which takes us on to your teapots.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So you've got some teapots that are launching in Fortnum & Mason's, and you showed me the drawing that you did for Fortnum & Mason's of like the shop front, and that's been put on teapots and milk jugs and mugs, and they've all kind of been made to fit. But then the teapots in the book are going to be going into production.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Do you want to describe what some of them look like?
So it's a double page when you open the book, and there's some animals playing hide and seek in a teapot collection that exists in the house on rows of shelves, and they're like different teapots that are kind of based on real historical shapes, let's say. But then I probably very quickly thought, I should decorate all these teapots in different styles, and so I just thought of anything I could think of, decorate all the teapots in the book, and then it's come to a different thing where why don't we try to make the teapots exist? And so it's been drawing all over the existing teapots, scouring the whole country for teapots that are you know, the same shape as the ones in the book, and then you know, making them real. So hopefully it'll be a bit, again, like you'll be able to reach inside of the page and pull out the teapot, and it's a bit of a funny thing to have the teapot you use in your house exists in a book. Yeah. Like you've got the only one, the real one that was drawn in the book. You know, it's like reversing it. Yeah. So again, it's like making magic come alive, essentially. It's like making it convincing that, no, this is the actual teapot. You can tell everybody that this is the actual one that was in the book, you know, and so that should be fun. They're accidentally all different eras, I think, as well, really, because I was trying to think of them as a bit like they represent different things in life, you know, but then I've subsequently researched it, and they are from, like, you know, there's one from the 30s, one from the 1800s, one from, you know, there's the 70s, the 80s, and so there's leopard skin ones, glam rock teapots, there's all different ones, yeah.
You were sold in Liberties originally, and that came about in a really funny sort of way, because quite a lot of people go to Liberties, they love a British brand, because also all your products are made in England, aren't they, which is really brilliant. But Tell the story of how you got to be in Liberties.
Yeah, so it was we drew. I think I had lots of the ink drawings, which they've always existed in books. So it's the first time I think I'd found a load of vintage frames, and so I put some of the drawings in vintage frames, and then it was just that someone had seen them in my studio. And then said, do you selling these? You should be selling them. And I think, I know someone at Liberty, you could show them to them, the buyer. And the buyer said, yeah, let's just put them in Liberties and see how they go. And so they gave me like this blank wall. I put them all on the wall, and it got a photo of me stood by the wall going, "This is it." And then it was like, but then I got a phone call like the next week or something saying, "Hello, Mr. Can you bring in some more drawings?" Because I was like, they can't have all gone. There were like about 20 drawings in there, and I went in there, like half of them had gone. Wow. So I was like, okay, I find some more drawings. So I was just like pulling them off of all my shelves, putting them into loads of frames, and it was just like a cycle of doing that. And then the wall got bigger and bigger, and I was probably up to about 30 or 40 drawings I think at one point. And it was the same thing. It would be like in my head like a monster's coming in the night and eating them. It was like there was just like nails, and then there was just a couple of drawings like sort of at right angle. I was like, okay, I'll just keep going then. It got to a point where I was kind of stressing myself out, really drawing the same drawings that had been sold, or finding old, more drawings in my studio. And it was a bit like them managing me saying, look, you should really use all these. How many drawings have you got even? And I was like, I have no idea. So I think I got an assistant to count them here, and it was like thousands. So that they were a bit like, well, maybe you should start, printing them onto things. So then I decided just to do my alphabet tiles. Yes. And that was very much like, I don't know why you're doing that. No one else is doing tiles for one, or alphabet tiles. And I was just being stubborn. I was like, well, no, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah.
And your tiles aren't the kind of, you were saying earlier, they're not those traditional Victorian tiles. No, they're much more fun than that.
Yeah, they're much more fun, and it's not just like A for apple, B for boat. They're very much like, it makes you kind of think a little bit, and like, why is that, chameleon holding a cake, and it's a cupcake, and there's a cherry on the cake, and he's got a curly tail, and there's all these things that the more you hunt for relevant letters, the more there is. And so again, it's about looking harder at the world and looking at the details, and but the game aspect is really fun. I launched it in New York once, and then I had these like great New York ladies all around the table, and they were all going, "Oh, this is great fun," and they were trying to work out what they were. And the husband came in from work, and he was like, "Okay, what's going on here?" And he was like, "Oh, these great tiles. It's a game. You have to try and work out what they are." And his reaction, "What? We have to buy the whole alphabet? Where are we going to put it in our apartment?"
And you were like, "Yes."
Yeah, and I was like, "You can." Yeah, exactly. They were like, "No, silly. It's just the thing." Oh, yeah, but it is that thing. And when you put the letters together, you get like a really mad collection, of different things together. But that was the first thing I did. So as soon as I learned how to make things, and the quality of making things, I was really, from that word, I was away. I was thinking, what other things I like in my house. I love paperweights. I love having a lovely mug that fit. I always have my favourite mug.
Yes.
The right feel of it, the thickness of everything. It's like what things do I find that is enjoyable in my daily life, and also drawing on the objects. It's like invading your house with art. It's not just have to be on the wall. It can be something that you use every day, and you just it makes you daydream a little bit.
So when you say drawing on it, do you draw it flat on a piece of paper and then transfer it onto, so some of the teapots aren't flat. It's quite hard to work out how it would move around the corners and edges and things. Yeah, well, the first objects were hand drawn on. So I had lots of I had tables and boxes and things that were in my studio that I'd drawn on, and they were probably the first objects that I sold. Yeah. And probably buying more boxes, in antique shows and stuff. So I thought, well, I might as well draw 10, and it was a bit like a production line like that, but still very bespoke and very, individual things that I was coming across. And so that was the shift from that. But then my habit was to draw on things. So all the first ones I was drawing on the objects, and I still do that now. Like I'll draw
just play with blank things and draw all over them, but then I have to go back now and draw them flat and measure them and then print them on. So it's going from not just it's making it that I can make a number of them rather than there's just one that exists essentially.
And you're sold around the world now.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I just can't believe. I still can't believe it. I think it's when you go to different countries, you go to Asia or Russia or America. They see it very like. I think they describe it like I've somehow contained a British sort of humour and sensibility.
Yeah, do you think
and it's a bit like that's what they're really fascinated in and
it's
really
like
interested.
The monocle and the bowler hat.
Yeah.
It is very British,
yeah,
isn't
and I'm not trying to do it like deliberately.
No.
It's just what I genuinely feel like.
Yeah.
Or when you're in this country, that's what you do. You watch James Bond movies.
Yeah.
You do drink tea. You do have an umbrella. They're things that they're not like we're making it up. It's like a real part of our lifestyle. So all the things in it are quite genuine, but it's that's the way they find it. We have a very if I was speaking to a Japanese guy about it, and he was saying, but we're interested in your culture because you have a very strong identity. You're a small country, but you're like the music you produce, the books you produce is like we're kind of like, how do you constantly come up with all these very strong original styles? It could be fashion, it could be McQueen. It's like that's what they're like. What is it in your country that's making you? That's the kind of the little bit of the fascination. Obviously countries all around the world have the amazing creativity as well, but it's like their response to what we're doing is interesting. That's
really but it is it's like your style is very British. I hadn't even thought of it like that because obviously you're in Britain, you don't think of it from an outsider's sort of
and equally I've gone, well, if I've gone to another country, I'll draw them a special drawing that's relevant to their country. They're like, it's very nice you've done that, but we don't really want that. We want the British one. Because I'll draw I probably did like kabuki opera face on a cat, like things like that, and they were just thought it was a bit mad because it was like making a British character with Japanese face, but then I drew blossom on the cat's hat or something, and that was like the cherry blossom, and that was like, that's cool, that's fine. So it's finding those things that different cultures respond to as well.
I was looking at your Instagram and it's very interesting. So your Instagram is at Rory Dobner, for anyone who wants to go and check it out. But there's such a mix of designs on there. But someone had a tattoo done of your cat. Was it one of the cats, wasn't it?
Privilege, isn't it?
How cool is that? Did you know the person?
No, it's been a bit of a mixture with people over the years. I think quite a lot of people have had tattoos now, and it's been really nice that people haven't. Maybe people have just gone and done it, but quite often they've asked me, what joint is it okay if I do it, or could you print me out? Exactly. And it's been like a bit like I'll print them out, and then because it's like it is kind of a privilege to have that. It'd be great to get all of them together at a party, wouldn't it? It'd be really great, all wandering around, with the art on the walls and on the skin. So it's been.
Don't chop their arms off.
No.
Exactly. I know you like taxidermy, but that might be a step too far.
There's so I think there's been a fox someone's had on the inside of their arm, and I think the smoking fish is pretty cool. But then I've done bespoke ones as well, where I've
people have approached you to design them.
I've written lettering with butterflies and pocket watches, and sometimes I'm a bit surprised with where they put them or the size of they put. And I'm going, wow, okay, I didn't really realise you were going to do that with it, but there you go.
What's your favourite thing to design or to create?
I suppose it's just genuinely coming up with new characters. Really, it's really like when I look at a page, it's like I let my imagination fall onto the page, and it's a bit like letting them animate a little bit on the page and letting them move and walk around and. I just sort of, sometimes it's very quick and it's like freeze framing them. So then once I feel like, they're looking in a certain direction, or it's like a bit like I'm watching a film of them. And then I go, no, that's the angle I want it. So I've refined the way I would have done 20 sketches before. And then, so I do it quite directly. And then it's a bit like when that character kind of emerges and existed, it's really like he's alive. It's in this white world of paper, but it's really like he's been born. You know, he can now go on and have, you know, different adventures and whatever. And it's but before that, he's just living in my head as a kind of like a half done, you know, idea, I suppose. So I used to have things like even dreams of things that I'd half drawn, and it was something like, it's a bit nightmarish. It's a bit like they're waiting for me by my bed, and they're waiting for me to wake up to finish me. You know, I had things like that. I really remember it would just be a weight on my shoulders if I didn't make them. As soon as you put someone said when you put an eye in a teddy bear, you stitch it in. That's when they come. The teddy bear has its life. And it's very much like that. Once you draw that little bit of, you know, light glinting in their eye and their little, you know, coy smile and the corner of their mouth, suddenly they're looking at you from the page, and they're a bit like, I feel like they're slightly thankful, you know, because I helped them, come alive. It sounds completely stupid, but it's a bit like that. That's the interaction. That's what you get from sitting for hours at a desk late into the night. You start, like, you know, interacting with the things that you're creating, and that's part of the magic of certain hours that I spend in my studio. It is those moments where I'm sort of believing that they're existing, and that's when quite often they'll come to fruition, really.
I feel I need to introduce you to my dog.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you get that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a Jackapoo. He's called Alan Taylor.
Is he?
He's a real character.
He's got a double name.
And that's not my surname.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
No, I'm not going to do that. I normally ask what's next, but I think the Teapot's launching in Fortnum & Mason's is what's next. And also, you were talking about John Lewis is coming up as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's next. And then there's other drawings. I mean, the balloon collection is quite new as well, so that's been something that I launched at the last show. That's been really popular as well. And there's probably characters in the book that I'll probably then start. That'll be the next phase that I'll start going, what else could they be getting up to?
I
think so.
There's so much in it.
There's so much in it. So I could. I think that'll probably be the next thing I'll start. You know, letting them, you know, live their lives and see what's happening with that.
Brilliant. And also, the book is launching in October, and you're doing some book launches around that. And if anyone wants to find out where that's happening, that's on your website, which is rorydobner.com. If anyone wants to go and check that in. And also, you can buy it on the website as well. So
you can already. You can pre-order it now as well. Absolutely, yes. And you can bring that along to the signing, or you can get another one. And it's like I can, you know, hopefully I can try and get through as many as I can sign them or write, you know, bespoke, you know, names in and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. Should be fun. Brilliant. I just checked actually if there was a bit of a blank space in it. I could actually, I thought that yesterday. Page. I was thinking, I don't think there's any blank pages in it at all. But there is just about enough space at the front. So I was like, perfect. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I need a gold pen to go over there. That might work. It's probably a bit slower.
Well, Rory, thank you very much for letting me come to your house, stay as long as I have, eat all your cakes, and hang out in your studio. It's been brilliant to talk to you.
No, it's a real pleasure. Thank you very much for coming. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Inside Stylist podcast. You'll find all the details and links from today's episode over on insidestylist.com/Rory Dobner. He was fascinating, wasn't he? Don't you love the way his mind works, the way the characters that he draws aren't just characters, they have their own lives and their own quirks and their own funny little stories. I just loved it. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Until next time, bye for now.